Hey guys, so today we're going to be starting off by creating a new project here. So you can go to project window and new and then set the directory and name it. Or you can also do, if you made a folder somewhere, right? In my case, I did. I made a dice project folder on my desktop. And I'm just going to say set project and select it and hit set and create a default workspace. If I double click on it, you'll see when I open it up and drag it over really quick, if it lets me, right? It's got a workspace, a substance thing. Just to keep things organized, I'll be putting everything in there. It's easier to transfer things. So first off, I'm going to create a self cube, zoom in, and I'm going to first by scaling this up uniformly by 10, because I want a 10-meter cube. So it's a little bigger inside Unity. Now, what I like to do from here is freeze its transform so it's back to 1 by default. I'm going to call this SM underscore dice, or not dice, D6 underscore, and then 6, but I am going to use underscore and then do low with no all lowercase. It's a naming convention inside of Substance Painter. You definitely want to have that for when we do the baking, as an example. Oops, I don't want to create a new cube. I want to duplicate this one and call this one as well high. All right, so I'll call this the high poly. I'm going to select it and hit Control-1 so it's isolated. Now, before we add in more divisions, you want to make sure you bevel it. So beveling will bevel out the edges here, right? With a bit of a chamfer as well. You can turn that on and off if you want, but by dragging left and right. But I want the chamfer, so I'm going to turn that on, do 2 segments, and I'm going to make this a small fraction. You can hold the control key when you drag left and right to make this slower than if you were holding it. So see how fast it is there. And then, but I am going to type in a 0.2 on mine, since I know that. Now, in order to get my an edge loop evenly spit, like if I were to use the control with multi-cut, right? It's the multi-cut tool. You can add in edges wherever you like. You can snap things around, but I'm going to hit Q to turn that off because I want to make sure it's evenly divided. So I'm going to go up to my mesh tools, insert edge loop with options. If I hit the reset, this is what it will look like by default. You want to turn it to multi and turn it to 2 per number of copies. That way it'll evenly divide up our cube nicely on all edges, and then you just hover over the edge you want it to split so that we can have it divided up nicely. All right, so now what we want to do is select the faces that we need to change. So if I go to face mode, hit Q, go to face mode. There we go. Apparently I still had the tool active, right? So for our dice, right, by for how they are set up, right, you've got both sides will equal 7. So when you're designing this, right, so for 6, right, I would select these faces, right, to be able to make the divots for 6, and these fit 1 face for 5. Now, if I want to do 5 on this side, that means on this side I would have to do 2, right? For 4 and 3 on the opposite side, right? I'm going to give it a once over and see that I accidentally selected and deselected a face. Holding Alt and left clicking to orbit around, give it a nice, quick, clean look. And we're going to use the extrude tool to add more topology, which allows us to also inset things by using the offset functionality, right? You probably want like 0.2 or let's do 0.2, right? But before you get rid of this, you want to make sure you turn off the keep faces together, right? So see how when I drag left and right, it turns it into separate ones. That way we actually have the individual 6 pieces, right? So I'm going to hit Control E one more time. This time we're actually going to use the extrude to actually give it some thickness, right? So if I go I probably want to hold Control to do a little bit in, and if I left click out here and hit 3, you can see what it looks like, and also let go, right? And we got ourselves a nice cube. In fact, before I do that, anything else though, I am going to right click because I want to add a quick new material Lambert. This is going to be used for color ID in our high poly. So m_red, and I'm just going to set this to a red color, and I'm going to give it a little darker color red so it's not so bright. I'm then going to go to faces, select all the faces we extruded in before we smooth, so that way it's nice and easy and we don't have to select a million different polygons when we divide it, right? Because when you hit smooth, it basically takes this polygon and splits it into 4, and then it keeps going as you subdivide it more and more, right? Oh, make sure I grab this one. I'm going to right click and assign a right click and hold, assign favorite material, go to Lambert again. This time I'm going to call this in blue, m_blue, so I'm keeping it organized, and set the color. You want to use Lambert for color IDs. And then I'm just going to give it a little different. Technically, I could, with current selection, grow my selection. So if you hit the Shift and U, the greater than, it'll grow, right? So see how I selected it, you can kind of see the selection there. But if I hit the lesser than symbol, it'll shrink it. And then I'm just going to assign existing and do blue. That way I get both sides. And then if I go over here and hit 3, I can see what it looks like, which is ideally what I want. I'm going to hit smooth. Select it, hit smooth. I'm going to do it 2 divisions. As you can see, the polygons get denser and denser as I do that. So if I put it up to 2, right, it divided everything by 8, right? Well, technically divided that by 4, and then those got divided technically, so they each would have got 4, so it would have been 16 in total. But all right, for my low poly, I'm going to hit Control 1. I'm going to give it a single bevel, give it a nice lesser fracture of 0.2. Now, you probably don't see this on yours, but I have a smoothing angle. I can get that by going to these 3 little lines and turning on the smoothing angle, right? And then you can then type in 180, which is the max. But what it does is what we call which if I hit Control 1, right, you can see that it looks like it's rounded. We're going to fix this shading problem that we're getting right now, which is later, which will be allowing us to actually be fixed with the normal baking. Now, UVs for the low poly. I'm not going to use the same ones because I like to have a little extra padding, right? So what I'm going to do is go faces, grow my selections, and then just do create a normal base with the create tab in the UV tip set here, right? What we're doing is basically laying out our actual cube here as if you were basically unraveling it into, as if you were like splitting like think of like a cardboard box, right? Or a cereal box, right? And then I'm just going to hit the unfold, go back to UVs, unfold, optimize, right? I'm also going to hit the word set to make sure that these guys are all the same textile density. Textile density meaning that these cubes are now all the same checkerboard material if I turn this on and off, right? So what we're doing is laying this out flat in the UV space. So these are UV coordinates. If you were to move these around, right? So if I wanted to move it along the V, right? You can see the U is left and right, V is up and down, right? I'm also going to open up the layout section by shift clicking on layout. I'm going to go to edit, reset, and then reset these up. So I want a 2048 map, which is 2K. I'm going to have it rescale. I like to usually have it try to pack things 5 times. I'm going to set this to 2K as well for texture map. And I like to always give it a padding for a 2K map, roughly 16 pixels worth of padding for the shell. So a shell is also known as an island inside of UVs, right? So these islands, you want to make sure are based off of how, like, the flat side of the faces, or all the faces are similarly in the same direction, or at least on a 30 degree angle, right? Anything greater, you want to have a separate island. Specifically for Substance Painter. Now, I'm also going to see here. I'm going to select everything again, and then with these settings, if I hit layout, it'll make them my default, and you'll see that it's made the cubes nice and small, good texture balance. It's also packed them in what we call the 0 to 1 space. This is very key for bringing things for Substance Painter. 0 to 1 space, if you have it outside of this space, you won't be able to have the proper display, and it won't bake right, because the UVs will be out and it's trying to bake everything into the 0 to 1 space. So something that really pay close attention to. I'm going to hit Control 1, and you can see they're taking up the same space, which is perfect. I'm going to hop back really quick and do the D6 or D20, sorry, as well. So we're going to make a SM underscore D20. By default, if I go to its channel box over here and hit Control 1, it's this shape here, right? The planetonic solid. And I'm going to scale it up by 10, just like I did the other one. But you want to make sure the subdivision here is set to 0 in the polygon thing. If you shift or double click this, oops, undo. I don't want to create new ones, but double click it, it'll give you the options. Make sure you set this to 0 and then create if you want to do it that way. But then it'll default to 0 as well, right? Now I can also show you what it looks like if you have it set to 1 by left clicking and dragging. So I'm using the not left clicking, middle mouse dragging with the thing selected on the side here will allow me to do that. You can see that it will turn into a circle if you keep going. I'm going to now bevel this guy and add 2 segments and bring this down to like 0.2 for nice round even corners. I'm not going to touch the angle because this is perfectly fine as is. Now, this is where we just need to go to the UVs and finish, relay these out so that they have proper spacing for baking and that. And it'll make it easier to also have everything look nice and triangle. You can do this one of 2 ways. You can do it this way, leave it as is and unfold them, or you can also hit the create camera base and use the 3D cut and sew interactive one. You can get that here, or go to UV's 3D cut and sew. Oops. But you want to also right click and go to edge mode first before you do that. And then you can double click. In fact, I'll click off here. But you want to double click the line in between each triangle, right? So that you get something like this. As long as you did a subdivision with 2 segments, you should be fine for your D20, right? That way you can make very easy triangle pieces. Oops. Just keep going around, slowly but surely, making sure you cut every line. You could also right click on this and see that we've got different colors, except for some reason over here, even though it does have white lines, just to mean that they are different UV shells. And that was the second one in. Left click will bring you back to the regular. Left clicking this one will give you. So red means they're flipped, blue means they're facing straight forward, but we'll fix that when we unfold. As you can see, when I hit Q to turn off the interactive carousel, I'm going to hit the unfold button. You can also, I'm going to undo and hit Control U. Control U will also unfold. I'm also going to hit the word set for my texel density, so that way they're, even though they're small, I can now see that they have at least that. And then I'm going to just use a quick Control L, which is the same thing as if I hit layout. So you'll see it runs it 3 times. I'm going to undo that. Control L. In fact, I'm also going to go back in here quickly, turn on horizontal, and then click the layout that way. And I can see how they kind of did it, but it's not the best. So what I'm going to do is manually fix these up, just to make it a little better. All right. Slowly moving these around. Again, you want to make sure that you get this inside the UV to 1 space. This is where I might need to move this one up. Let's see here. You don't want to have these overlapping either. You want to make sure you have that space. And I also notice now I don't have this. So you can use on the side here, there's a cut and sew section. You can open up and we can hit cut and UV shells. This, and I'm once again going to just give it a quick Control L, which will pack this again. And I'm not a big fan of this way, but it's a little bit better, but not the greatest. I can play around with it some more. That you need to rotate things. You might want to use the transform section, right? So open that up as well. That's where the texel density, it has a 90-degree turn, making it nice and easy to flip things around. Back these out, nice and easy. Double click it. Once you're happy, once we get this down to a little bit nicer pack, we can then worry about bringing this over to Simpsons Painter. Right. Because I have the extra room. No, actually. This one here as well. Over a little closer, but not. Be careful I don't accidentally. That. There we go. Up around here. Grab this one, rotate it. This up here. And drag and select over all of them. Holding the X key, I can snap this to the center and then just uniform scale it up just to get the maximum amount of texel density I can out of these guys, right? Except for I need to move these guys over to make sure I am inside the 0 to 1 space, which is paramount. So again, these are the 2D coordinates on the 3D object, right? So we've now flattened everything out as if I were to literally take a pair of scissors, pop these out and flatten them and lay them flat on the ground. So we now hop back here I'm going to go to Object Mode, Control 1 to unisolate, select everything, delete history and freeze transformed. You can find Edit, delete all type in here, as well as the freeze transform is under Modify, Freeze Transform, right? If you needed to do it that way. I'm also going to go up to here and select this guy, do the D20 first, File, Export Selection. Make sure you set it to Export or FBX, turn on smoothing groups, and SM underscore D20. For the high poly, you have to make sure you do smooth it, right? So if you were only using Smooth Mesh Preview number 3, you will want to make sure you smooth it and then turn it back to 1, and then go File, Export Selection. And I'm going to do SM underscore D6 underscore Y and hit enter. Go to low poly. Go on, File, Export, Selection, and let's grab this one, or no, this one. Replace this part here and type low, and then just make sure it's FBX. Again, smoothing groups on, and export. With that, we'll be ready for the next day when we get into Substance Painter to actually texture our dice.